We were just cleaning up dust and old magazines when my son said 5 quiet words that made my hands freeze. The vacuum was making noise, the window light became golden, and everything I thought I knew about us shifted. I didn't expect it, I didn't even know he had been carrying this feeling for so long. What he asked me after that changed a simple Saturday cleaning day into the moment our family finally healed. Before I want to get to know you better. Write in the comments what city you're watching from. Boston, Tulsa, Phoenix, a small town on a highway I've never heard of. I love picturing all the places where these stories reach. My name is Jennifer. I'm 62 and my house gets the kind of morning light that fills the hallway like warm tea. It was a cleaning day because the dust had begun to feel like it lived here too, and I'd gotten to that age where a tidy room feels like someone saying something nice. My son John came over to help early without calling first, the way he used to when he still had a house key and fewer reasons to stay away. Hayes a tall man now, bigger than the boy I brought up with, the careful voice of someone who has figured out how easily words can hurt people. Where do you need me? He asked, and I pointed him toward the hallway closet that had turned into a museum of coats nobody wore anymore, umbrellas that always broke when you really needed them, and the big old video camera we never got rid of because it had birthdays we never transferred to DVDs. We worked in that comfortable, quiet way of people who understand each other's habits. The vacuum made its steady noise across the carpet. Lemon oil warmed up under my rag. The wood drank it in and woke up. John pulled the closet doors off their track and put them aside with a little grunt, like he used to when a jar wouldn't open for me, and he'd make a big deal about saving the day. Do you want to keep this? He asked, holding up a scarf I bought when I thought yellow still looked nice on me. Put it in the maybe pile, I said. Because I'm generous with maybes. We made 3 piles, because 3 piles feel like you have control. Keep, give away, and the mountain of maybes that always gives you away. The house smelled like dust and citrus, and the faint metal smell of old keys. Sunlight crept across the floors, bit by bit, until it found a cardboard box taped so much it seemed afraid of the world. Across the top, in my shakier handwriting, was a date from 20 years ago, and the gentle instruction I never followed for John when ready. He spotted it the same second I did. His eyes looked at my face, and something passed between us that wasn't air. What's in there? He said. Your childhood. I said, trying to smile, or at least the parts I thought you'd want someday. He sat with his legs crossed on the rug, a grown man folding himself down into the boy who used to build Lego castles where other people put their coffee tables. I brought the scissors and we cut the tape like a ribbon. We were both scared to pull. On top were birthday cards damaged by time. He read one from me, a messy heart dotting the I in his name, and laughed quietly. There was a program from his 5th grade concert where he played the triangle like it was the most important job. A baseball with a faded signature and a Polaroid of him in a paper crown frosting on his chin. He put each thing down carefully, like he was fixing a clock, and every tiny screw mattered. Under the photos was a spiral notebook, the cheap kind you buy in August because school always requires it. On the first page, in my then neat handwriting, I had written letters I might give you later. Seeing it made my stomach jump up and down. I had forgotten writing them, not the feelings but the actual doing. The way you hide pieces of yourself in paper when you can't find the right time to talk. John looked up. Do you want me to read these? Only if you want to, I said, and I really meant it. I've learned that permission is a gift you can give or keep back, and once you keep it back, a person acts differently in the room with you. We can close the box and put it in the maybe pile. He turned the notebook in his hands, touched the edge like a deck of cards, and then he said the words that stopped the day. Mom, can we do this together? It was such a simple sentence, and it dropped into me like a coin in water, disappearing and making a sound at the same time. Together, not me alone with my memories, not him alone with his questions. Something in me loosened up. Yes, I said, but slowly. We made rules because rules make difficult things doable. We would read only a few pages today. We would stop if either of us needed to. We would not try to fix 20 years in 20 minutes. It felt formal and gentle. like agreeing to walk into a forest and keep each other in sight. The first letter, written the night before his first day of middle school, was full of the big mother feelings. I had tried to hide back, then I read it out loud, my voice careful. The way you hold a delicate plate you've decided to finally use. I told 12-year-old John that. I saw how he stayed at the edge of things, not quite ready to step forward, and that it was okay to be uncertain. I wrote about his father working late that week, promising he'd make the next game. I wrote that I loved him the special way mothers do, with worry and pride owned tight together. When I finished, the house shifted, not really, but the air felt rearranged, as if a window I didn't know was stuck had opened. I don't remember you ever saying it like that, he said. I didn't know how at the time. I answered, I thought if I said the quiet parts out loud, they would sound like I was messing up. He nodded, and in the nod I saw years of our mistakes. Him thinking my silence meant disappointment, me thinking his distance meant he didn't care. Families, I think, speak the wrong language until something makes them learn the right one. We read another letter, then another one from the spring his team lost every single game, and I pretended not to care how much it hurt him. One I wrote the night he called from college to say he wouldn't be home for Thanksgiving, his voice full of a new world, my heart learning how to make space while emptying itself. Out there were awkward sentences and dramatic ones. There were small truths I had not given him because I didn't want my sadness to become his job. After the third letter, he closed the notebook and balanced it on his knees. The Saturday sounds came back, someone cutting grass down the block, the kettle starting to whistle in the kitchen, the slow blink of the cat on the windowsill forgiving us our noise. Mom, John said, and he looked like the man he is, and the boy he was, all at once. I said some things a few years back I can't take back. I was mad, and I didn't even know at what work the marriage myself. I made you the target because you were safe. I felt the pain in that word, safe, and also the strange honor of it. I had been the shore he crashed against because I wouldn't move. I wasn't perfect either. I said I turned worry into orders, and it came out like I didn't trust you to live your own life. He reached for the notebook again, but didn't open it. He just rested his hand on it like a hand on a door before knocking. I want to start over, he said quietly. If you want to, if you'll let me not erase things. Just, agree to do the rest better there. It was the unexpected thing, and it wasn't dramatic so much as deeply ordinary, which somehow felt more powerful. People think change arrives like a parade. Sometimes it arrives like a man in a hallway, asking for a broom and a chance. Yes, I said, and I felt it all the way to the bottom of my skirt, on one condition. He laughed. Here we go. We don't make promises that turn into heavy loads. I said we make small ones with room to breathe. We start with lunch. After we finish this closet, we try a Sunday phone call that can be 5 minutes and doesn't have to be a report. And if either of us messes up, we forgive out loud so the other one can hear it. Deal, he said, and held out his hand like a business meeting I wanted to go to. We shook on it, silly and serious. We went back to the piles. It was almost funny how quickly you can return to deciding what to do with scarves after rearranging the furniture of your relationship. I found an old label maker and printed John's keys, because he has always been the kind of person who thinks he'll remember where he left them, and never does. He laughed, then put the little plastic label in his pocket like a party favor at a wedding. By noon, the closet looked like it belonged to people with plans coats. We actually wore boxes that said what they meant. The video camera moved to the coffee table with the dignity of an elder waiting to speak. We made sandwiches in the kitchen, turkey for him, egg salad for me, and ate standing up, a habit we both promised we'd quit someday. The kettle finally boiled. I poured tea, he poured water, and we stood by the sink listening to the faint summer sound of a lawn sprinkler clicking somewhere. Can I tell you something else? John asked, and his voice had that careful edge again, the one that means the words have been practiced and still don't behave. Of course, I thought I had to do big things to make you proud, he said. The corner office, the house with the yard, all of it. And when it didn't look like that, I figured I should disappear until it did. Took a breath and tasted lemon and dust and relief. John if you showed up with nothing but your car and a box of dirty clothes, I'd still cut the tape for you. I said, I'm proud of the way you come back. Not everyone knows how he looked at the sink, then at me for a second. I thought he might cry, but what he did instead was nod like he'd been given a piece of information that would be useful later, which is its own kind of rescue. We washed the plates. He dried the ordinary work of the day, kept our hands busy while our hearts caught up. The afternoon went deeper. We carried donations to the trunk of his car, and he joked that some thrift store worker was about to meet the 1998 version of our family. We stood in the driveway and made a plan for the attic, which has been threatening me for years with an avalanche of everything I haven't decided about. He said he'd come back next Saturday early, maybe bring coffee, maybe bring nothing but himself. Both sounded good before he left. He lingered by the living room, the way you linger when something in you is half packed, and asking to stay behind one more thing. He said, can we, if you're up for it, watch one of those tapes next time? I want to see the years. I thought I remembered. Well, do it together. I said, and I meant it twice. Watch the tapes. Yes, but also watch the way our lives have looped and paused. And now finally play. He kissed my cheek the way he did as a teenager, when he'd grown too tall for the old ways and invented new ones that still counted. Then he left, the door closing with that familiar click that for so long sounded like leaving today. It sounded like a promise to return. I sat on the hallway floor for a long minute, not because I was tired though. I was, but because I wanted to hold the shape of the day in my body. The closet was a quiet, neat rectangle the sun had moved and left. A bright mark on the rug where John had been sitting. The notebook waited on the coffee table, patient as a good teacher. Later, I would call a friend and tell her we had made progress, the kind you can't take a picture of. I would write the word together on a sticky note and put it inside the cupboard with the cereal, so I'd see it every morning. I would label one more box for John when ready and laugh, because maybe the truth is, we're all always getting there. That in that moment I simply breathed in and out, feeling the soft rattle of the house I've lived in for 37 years. The one that has put up with my habits and my waiting. I thought about how cleaning is just deciding over and over what gets to stay and what we're brave enough to let go of, and I realized that maybe the unexpected sentence my son asked me wasn't a question at all. Maybe it was an invitation. Next Saturday, we'll climb the attic ladder together. Well, open boxes that have waited longer than some friendships. Well, listen to the noise of old VHS tapes finding their place in a player that will probably argue with us before giving in. Well, stop, and we need to keep going. When we can make room for the people we're becoming, and for the ones we were, and for the conversations we should have had and are finally brave enough to have now. That, I suppose, is what changed the idea that there's still time to start from where you are. The next Saturday arrived sooner than I expected, as if the week had politely stepped aside to make room for what John earned. I had promised each other. Morning light slanted through the curtains, carrying that faint smell of dust and old wood. I made coffee strong enough to stand on buttered toast and set the mugs at the kitchen table like a quiet welcome sign. True to his word, John showed up early. He had a box of donuts in one hand and a roll of garbage bags in the other. I figured we'd need both, he said, his smile softening the edges of his tired face. We started with small talk, the kind that fills the air without demanding anything. The weather, his neighbor's barking dog, the way grocery store prices seemed to climb overnight. But hovering above us was the attic with its sagging plywood floor and its years of secrets. Ready, he asked, as ill ever be. I said, grabbing the flashlight that still wore its sticker from 2009. The attic ladder creaked under his weight, a familiar complaint. While I steadied the base, I followed him up, feeling the air change thicker, heavier, as if memories had been left without fresh air for too long. The space smelled of cedar paper and faint mold, like an old library no one had visited in decades. Stacks of boxes crowded the beams, holiday decorations sagged in torn bags, old suitcases leaned like exhausted travelers waiting for a ride. Dust hung in the sunlight, 1,000 tiny galaxies swirling in the golden beams from a single window at the far end. Wow, John muttered. It's like time gave up here. We picked a corner, his hands strong, but cautious, lifted a box labeled simply 1995. Inside were VHS tapes, rows of them, handwritten labels in my younger scrawled John's 6th birthday, Thanksgiving at Mom's, Christmas morning, each one a small doorway to a life we had lived but never replayed. You want to watch one? He asked, his voice dipped in hesitation, as though afraid the past might hurt more than heal. Yes, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of it. We carried the box downstairs, set up the old player I hadn't used in over a decade, and slid a tape inside the screen, flickered colors bleeding and trembling, then stabilized. There, he was 6 years old, wearing a crooked crown, standing behind a cake that seemed far too large for his little shoulders. His missing teeth gave him a smile that belonged to no one but the boy he used to be. I laughed, startled by the sound of my younger self's voice on the recording. Look at you, I whispered. John sat forward, elbows on his knees. His eyes didn't leave the screen. Remember that crown? He said. You wore it for 3 days, straight, even to the grocery store. I told him. You said it made the apples taste better. The video rolled on, singing, clapping, the candle flame wavering before his eager breath snuffed it out. Then silence filled the room when the tape ended, heavier than the noise had been. That's strange, John said after a long pause. It feels like watching proof of something I forgot was real. We didn't say much as we rewound the tape and placed it gently back in its sleeve. Instead, we reached for another, this one labeled Thanksgiving 1998. The screen showed my mother at the dining table, her apron dusted with flour, her laugh filling the room. She's been gone for years now, but in that moment she lived again, in her gestures and her way of clapping her hands together before serving pie. John swallowed hard. I didn't think I remembered her voice. I placed my hand on his, not speaking, because some silences are too sacred to fill. We watched 3 tapes that morning, each one unwrapping a piece of us. A Christmas morning where the tree leaned because the stand had broken, a school play where John mumbled his lines, too shy to look at the audience, a summer picnic where the camera tilted because I laughed too hard to hold it straight after the last tape ended. John leaned back in the armchair, rubbing his face with both hands. I needed this, he said finally, not just the memories, you, me together. His words warmed me in places I thought had gone cold. I needed it too. I said I didn't realize how much we didn't clean much that day. The attic remained mostly untouched, still heavy with boxes. But something inside us shifted. We had cracked open years of silence and found not just dust but fragments of joy waiting to be rediscovered. Before leaving, John hugged me longer than he had in years. Next week, he said into my shoulder, let's open more boxes, and for the first time in a long while I felt certain the promise would hold. That night alone, I sat in the quiet house, the faint whir of the remainder filling the room. I thought about how life isn't just about cleaning out closets or attics, but about dusting off the parts of ourselves we've been too afraid to look at. John's unexpected words the week before had begun something fragile and new. Now, with the tapes and the letters and the quiet agreements between us, we were slowly piecing together a language of love that had always been there, just waiting for us to speak it. And as the house settled into its nighttime hush, I whispered to the stillness, we're ready.